Hello, friends, amigos, compadres, brethren, sisterhood, race mates, that is human, species mates, typology community cohorts. My name's host Eric, and I want to make sure you're aware of this. I'm not bullshitting, and I don't say this to everybody, but you are my very favorite viewer. It's true. I've always thought there's something special about you. You know, you hear a lot about snowflakes in the community, here in the typology community. You are a true wonder of the world, really. Not just a unique snowflake, but a pyramid like in Giza. Yeah, that's how special you are. And how triangular and made of stone. So, anyway, I just wanted to talk to you tonight and let you know. When you watch one of my videos, I feel a little tingle right at the top of my butt cheeks. It tells me it's you. And I think to myself, oh my God, it's my favorite viewer again, watching one of my videos. And then I just take a really deep, contented sigh like this. Because after all, you're my favorite. My very mostly, moistly favorite of all the viewers. It's you. You were wondering. You thought I didn't even know who you were, huh? I know. I'm a YouTube video maker, so I know all kinds of things. Like, I can tell when anybody who's a special person watches one of my videos, and you are the specialist. You're like a wedding cake's worth of special. Multiple layers, filled with icing, filled with cake, filled with wedding people. It's just a wonderful occasion for everybody. So anyway, what have you been up to? Really interesting to hear. You like that part of the country? Oh, I see. Well, it's been interesting weather around here, I'll tell you. So, I just can't get over the fact that you're here because, like I said, you're my favorite. And it just is pure FI swimming pool when you're here and I can talk to you. And I go like, fuck yeah. You just had a shootout in front of the house? Did you shoot or other people were shooting? Yes. Well, I'm an affirming guy. I like to affirm that you are in fact my favorite viewer. Good night, Bruce Wayne. K. Billy. Aw shucks, I knew it. Yeah, you are my favorite viewer. You are. I've been stalking you for ages now. Um, you know, Taylor, when he hit the dirt, he was thinking, "Gosh, I hope I'm Eric's favorite viewer." You're my favorite viewer too. Don't worry. Catchy title, huh? Yeah, you are my favorite viewer. Very catchy. It's very FE. Now, I hope. Really? Too bad it's not recording anymore, huh? Who won the shootout? Was it Bob versus Joe? Or Juan versus Roberto? It might be the case in your neighborhood. We were talking about wanting to be your favorite viewer. Oh, well, sure. Bruce Wayne, I don't have a shadow. I just know that when I look underneath my jiggling undercarriage for the dampness, there's your name right there. Because you are my favorite viewer, my absolute favorite out of them all. I keep a little locket and a pendant on my heart. It says Bruce Wayne. Rowan Morgan, I just want to tell you, you are my absolute favorite viewer. I am just a flutter to have you here You're my favorite. That tenderness you see coming from me is purely authentic moisture. If you were a towelette, you wouldn't just be moist, you'd be sopping wet. That's how much you are my favorite viewer. Bruce Wayne, you know one thing I love about you is how you say this is an ENTJ technique to sell something. That is so insightful. You are so smart. When I think about to myself, when I talk to my friends or whatever, I go, who's somebody who's really smart? I think of you. And it's that kind of insight that I really, really, really appreciate from you. That's why you, Bruce, are my favorite viewer. My favorite one. Rowan, messy. Oh, you're always making quips like that. I love that about you, Rowan. You're the best. You're my favorite viewer. Very favorite. It's so great having my favorite viewer here today. Because it's like, it's so exciting. It's like seeing the president or something wriggling around in your butt cheeks. Being like, what are you doing back there? Well, you know what he's doing. He's trying to get anal. I'm like, hey, I'm a virgin back door. I only take it up the front hole. And he tries to hump my pee hole. I'm like, that pole's too small. Gotta go on the belly button. Even in Anetta H. Anetta H, Anetta H, Anetta H, Anetta H, Anetta H. Today we can see that Eric changed bodies with his ISFJ wife. Yes, I've got plenty of FE going here. Anetta H, I wanted to tell you something. Listen, I'm serious about this too, and it's not something I tell everybody, but you really are my favorite viewer. It's true. My very favorite. Like I love the way when you come in and you say evening like that, even though it's nighttime. That's so quirky. I love it. That's why you are my favorite. So, hi, Jacob Marquez. Did you know that you're my favorite viewer? You're Limbless Action Figure's favorite viewer as well. Chris didn't. You are my favoriter favorite viewer. Hello. Yeah. I'm not lying this time. Not this time. Every other time, maybe, but not this time. Okay? Now, look. Because you are my favorite viewer, and Jacob, by the way, if I didn't mention it, you are my favorite viewer as well. No, that's not Shirtless Woodman. That's Limbless Action Figure. Manipulation. Well, you won't be sensing it after I transubstantiate this bong rip for you. Look, I don't do this for everybody, but I'm going to sacrifice all the high from this bong rip to go into your guys' heads. Okay? Why? Because you, K-Billy, are my absolute favorite viewer. Number one, bar none, favorite. I transubstantiate thee. Nick Gurr, listen. Nick Gurr, I know you're not a really regular viewer, but I just want to tell you that you are my absolute favorite viewer, Nick Gurr. And your birthday is the happiest of my viewers' birthdays, of any of the happy birthdays that ever happy birthday to. Peter Dentist agrees. He says, don't go to the dentist. Just be happy to be you, because you are my favorite viewer of all time. Okay. David Kepke, I want to share something with you, something pretty private, something pretty personal, something pretty magic. You, David Kepke, are my favorite viewer. Congratulations. All these other people have been waiting, just waiting, hoping I would say their name, but instead, flow state that is not a dildo, it's a limbless action figure. How would I be different if I were an ESTP? If I were an ESTP, I'd mistakenly identify this as a dildo, when really it's a limbless action figure. You off the gases. I'm off the gas. C.pp3, you are my favorite viewer. This is my self-esteem rod. Vaughn Chase on David Kepke's alt account. Lots of new names I see. Welcome all. Are you really David Kepke's alt account, Vaughn Chase? I don't think so. So of course I'm ready for questions. I'm always ready for questions. Chris Dint. Stretching his neck to look around a bit where his mates are. Who? This guy? Oh, listen, people. Limbless action figure is not my friend, alright? He looks like a dildo. I do not want to hang out with him. Hey, why are you being so mean to me? Because you look like a dildo. Well, a little bit. A lot. Didn't you go to prison? No, I didn't go to prison. I was arrested in Oklahoma for marijuana possession. But I didn't even see the inside of a cell. I just paid the fine and went on my way. They broke my car in the process. Really quite fucked up of them. The dinosaur limbless guy? You think that's a breed of dinosaurs yet undiscovered? Penosaur? Where are your chickens? They're in their coop sleeping. Sleeping their little chicken asses off. Do I smoke meth? No, not for a long time. I see. Dentist jokes are ironic as my last name is a type of fish in the Mediterranean Sea and has bad teeth like an angler. Interesting. Do you, Jacob Marquez? Do you smoke meth? Bro? I really do appreciate being addressed as bro, by the way. That means a lot to me. Can you say something about how SI and 6 SI count value plays out? Yeah. I was talking to Kimberly about that the other day because her son's an ISTP. And I was asking, he's very picky about the restaurant. Like he wants to control the restaurant he goes to, for example. And it sort of boils down to putting particularist things first for themselves. It's kind of a display of open selfishness in a way. It's not selfishness like FI selfishness. It's selfishness like SI selfishness. Like, okay, I need a rest. I need a snack. I need a meal. I've been tweaking off meth for 4 months now. I haven't slept in 4 days. Well, you need to go to sleep then, Jacob. Obviously, you can't go that long. Look, there's some rules about meth. 2 nights max. Okay, 2 nights max. And you gotta go ahead and lay yourself down to sleep at a certain point there. The key thing to amphetamine usage in general is that it relies on you having stores of dopamine to reuptake inhibit. So, as a consequence, you need to be cautious in its application. Is there anything wrong inherently with being a TE user? Using CTI users in high regard. No, I don't necessarily hold them in high regard. I find it frustrating arguing with TE users sometimes. If it's what the fuck is that? It's some sort of massive animal over here. All right, what is this? What's going on over here? All right, well, whatever it was, I guess I startled it back into the woods or something. Not that I live next to the woods. Okay, so really, the key to using amphetamines is managing it, having some sort of SI ritual that you're going to be able to stick with. The problem with smoking meth is that it lends itself to periodic re-upping. You're best served to take your amphetamines in the morning and try to go to sleep at night, or at least, and to take, when you feel sleepy on your amphetamines, take a nap on them. If you have good amphetamines, you should be able to sleep on them. I can sleep on Adderall now, no problem. I took my Adderall, then went back to bed this morning, slept for like 4 hours, and then woke up. If you stood up on the roof of your house with a flashing blue light, you could probably see with a proper telescope. Possibly, I do have a tall house. 3-night rule says flow state. Well, that third night will you start hallucinating for sure. You know, I had a song called "Second Night," which is all about the second night up on meth. Yeah. It's the second night when you start to feel strange and you're wondering if the range is on, sending sparks to soar in the kitchen sky. An actual night, is there no top to the sky up above the shells or something like that? Anyway, it's because, when you're deep into your second night and you start seeing all these little like light things going up of shit, like, is it actual sparks or is it just I just hallucinating? A/SE equals drug use. No, I mean, I think that my drug use is probably a little less ambitious than some other types of drug use, maybe. I try to contain it as best I can. I couldn't handle alcohol, was the thing. I had to quit drinking alcohol because I couldn't control it at all. But, like, right, it's not ever fun at all. The thing is, the second night can be fun because you start getting loose ideationally, especially like I did anyway. And I start making crazy ass shit. It was just like all the gates are down and just with that jacket, I want to believe what you say, like Jordan Peterson. Have me mow my lawn or some shit. This is important. You didn't listen to me. It's very, very important. Okay, Jordan Peterson. Yeah, very important, I'm sure. You and your metaphors and your myths and shit. Super sleep. Super sleep is good. It's super compared to regular sleep. If someone is bad at recalling factual information when discussing topics, what polar function would that be, or is that polar at all? I would say that's not very definitive. Yeah. Is there a reason you don't record your videos in the house or the garage? Because I can smoke out here. I can't smoke in the house. I don't want to smoke in the house, I don't want my inside of my house to smell like cigarettes. And I could pull bowls in the house. I have done that before on occasion, but Kimberly gets her haircutting clients here, and no, I mean, I'm not sure what to type her. Sheila W. I've heard you say that A/FI lends itself to the person making good FI long-term decisions. For example, dating Abraham was a good FI decision. What would it mean for A/TI? Well, I suspect it would mean you probably have a pretty good awareness of what you're going to be able to defend, what's defensible argumentationally. So it allows you to know which of your FI expressions is going to be communicably accepted well and which ones are not. And so I guess it would mean that. But the problem I'm having is not understanding TI in the 8th slot, it's understanding FI in the 1st slot. You're deliberating with your feelings, but what TI affords you is the ability to communically defend things that would otherwise might be considered arbitrary. So in other words, you're supporting your arbitrariness in ways that make it less arbitrary. Hey, do you have any thoughts about how polar TI looks? Yeah, polar TI is very easy to find and identify. It's an inability to follow relations between words. So if I say to a TI polar person, who is your grandmother's only grandchild's mother's only child, they won't be able to follow that. If you even ask them things like, who's your mom's sister's kid, they'll go, family? It's quite dramatic. Are you making fun for the sake of it, or you actually don't like Jordan? I don't dislike Jordan Peterson at all. I think that he's somewhat reductive in his understanding of things in general. That he makes out his own perspective as more universally applicable than it actually is. At least that. How does a polar NI user look? So that's like my dad. And it kind of looks like they never really make a final decision about anything. And they can't tell what's determinate in a question. So they're the kind of type that might be worrying about, like the window fogging when the plane is crashing instead of worrying about making it fly properly or something. I mean, it's not really true for TESI, but the idea is, though, that there's this failure to recognize what's important or determinate in a question. And so they'll have a tendency to, if it's a TI style question, maybe focus on the wrong parts of it. Like my dad was trying to define polymath the other day as being in the British Academy of Sciences or something, Royal Academy of Sciences. And I said, but there are other types of people besides people in the Royal Academy of Sciences who are referred to as polymaths. And he got frustrated with me and my definitional thing, as he has for most of my life, because he's a TI polar logic test. It's very straightforward. It's like, just ask some genealogy questions. Like, okay, my father's only son's mother's only daughter is who? The answer is my mother. Now, there's no way TI polar would be able to do that one even. That one's too complicated for TI polar. They can maybe do 3 steps, maybe. Cell service already 2 minutes behind. 2 minutes behind what? Louisa Scott. Louisa Scott, I want to tell you something. You are my absolute favorite viewer. What does any polar look like? Any polar looks like, okay, so I'm rich in the past. Any polar, I think it looks different in TI DOMs than it does in FI DOM. So ISTP, they're going to have a lot of trouble coming up with reasons for things and or ways of doing things, and probably also coming up with different names for things. But if you ask an ISFP, they seem to be better at coming up with reasons why they might do something, because that's FI and they're a dominant FI type. They seem better at coming up with ways to do things, because that's TE and they're TE in the 4th slot. But they're just as bad as ISTPs at coming up with new names for things. So if I said, I've come up with a new invention, it's a combination mockingbird killer and hummingbird feeder. So one end of the machine kills mockingbirds, and the other one feeds hummingbirds. And I can't come up with any names for it. Can you please come up with 5 different names for this product that might be snappy names that will help it to sell? And if you have an any polar person, they won't be able to come up with more than 1 or 2 at most. And they don't like the idea. They're just like, I don't know. Like, why would you even ask such a question? You know, aren't FI users inauthentic since their current emotions aren't communicable with themselves in the future? No, Von Chase, I think FI users have a different understanding of FI than I can possibly understand. But in fact, it must have a cross-time aspect to it as well, like all the other functions do. I don't quite get what that is, but I don't know. They're not inauthentic, of course, because there's no other thing to point to of the self that could be more authentic than one's emotional attachment to things or one's honest emotional response to things. So, I mean, you might say that they are less clear about what they want and stuff over time because they're aware how their emotions change, whereas I'm not. Yeah. Well, my mother-in-law might be anti-polar. She talks endlessly, giving you tons of unimportant details, especially with people, and you have no idea what the hell the thing she wants to say really is. Maybe she's ESFJ. Possible. My dad is famous for telling us more about penguins than we want to know. Then after that, what happened was Napoleon entered into Germany and took over the Rhineland for a period of nearly 4 months. And then it's like, why are you telling it? How did you get from wherever it was you were to talking about Napoleon? FI users strive to be authentic. Well, FI users understand that weight is as real as anything physical, that loss and trauma are things that one carries in one's ontology or partially define one's ontology. So it's an understanding of human experience that's much more real in a lot of ways. TI users, we're dealing with representations of shit all the time. That is what I was trying to confirm. What types overthink things during conversation so much they're unable to reply? INTPs, INFJs, maybe. INTPs do too. INTPs are very FE careful. What's the difference between healthy FE and unhealthy FE, says Joseph Ross. Joseph Ross, have I mentioned to you that you're my very favorite viewer? And John Winters, I don't think I've mentioned to you. You're my very favorite viewer. Dan Klein, it's you. You're my very favorite viewer. Hi, Senjin. I've got a secret I'm going to tell you. Senjin, you are my very favorite viewer. Nick Klopp, you too. Nick Klopp, do you think as an ESTP that your polar FI clouds your illogical attachment to your bullshit personality system? Oh, that's a legitimate question there. I'm not an ESTP. How would FI polar cloud your illogical attachment? If it clouds the illogical attachment, does it make it more logical? Or and to your bullshit personality system? Oh, what's bullshit about my personality system, right? It's a model of how attention manners work. So what makes it bullshit, Nick Klopp? You're fun. You're not my favorite viewer. You wouldn't know because you're FI polar. So I wouldn't know what exactly would I not know because I'm FI polar. Do you know, Nick, what it is I wouldn't know? How do you test for SI 8th slot? I mean, I don't really. It plays out like 7th slot, but you can pull more memories out. So it's like 8th slot, you're really going to struggle to pull concrete details out, especially from an ENTJ. ENFJs probably have stored up stories they tell as replacement memories for memories because they're FE. But INFJs also is trouble getting specific details out of them, and I think it's because Joseph Ross, that was a demonstration of, I don't know, me just fucking around. This the idea of the evening for the live stream. So yeah, it's like 7 slugs if you can pull out the details. The reason I think it works like that is because since SI is always serving NI, if I'm just asking for random details, it's not serving any particular framed whole, and it makes it very difficult for INFJs to pull it out, but they can with a little attention towards it. You wouldn't know because you have no concept of how deep your FI intertwines with your TI. So what, but again, I ask you what it is that I wouldn't know. You see, that's the question I'm asking. And well, I have no concept of how deep my FI intertwines with my TI. That's probably true. So what does that make me not know? Would you really truly know who your favorite viewer is if you're FI polar? Brian Goss, I know it's you. I know you are my absolutely favorite viewer. So, I mean, obviously I do know, even though I'm FI polar. So ISFPs and ISTPs don't understand any style stuff. They just sense you're looking at things strangely when too much comes out. It's not so much they don't understand when it comes out. They're not able to attend via that manner when called upon to do so. So, for example, my current theory is ISFPs kind of work around the NE polar test by thinking to themselves, well, what are different reasons why I would want to do that thing? When I ask them, give me reasons to do a thing, generally, and that they're using TE when I ask them ways to get something done. Like, give me 5 different ways to get something from the bottom of the ocean. A TI DOM, ISTP will probably not be able to come up with more than 1 or 2 ways, but ISFP will be able to come up with more. Is there a way to look for functions in the 5th and 6th slot? Well, 5th and 4th are really difficult to look at because they're about similar in terms of activity level. Like both Taylor and I can flip back and forth between SI and NI because we each have it in 4-5, although in the opposite 4-5s, So, okay, but Nick Klopp, I've asked you a very specific question. You're trying to say that my lack of knowledge about FI means that I wouldn't know something, right? So I'm asking you a question. What is it that I wouldn't know because of my lack of FI? Okay, did I speak slowly enough that time? What is the NI user's biggest strength? Well, it's, I guess, basically parsing away the unnecessary from life and additionally gaining the benefits of synergy. So one thing NI does is it pays attention to things where the sum is greater than the whole. The whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And there's a lot of things in life like that. And so they get the fact that for something to really pop, everything's got to be right. And as a consequence, they've got a clearer understanding of how to make shit pop, which is useful. Let's see. They can't use it well, but aren't bothered by others using the NE much. Figuring out shit no one else will. At Blue Nowhere. How do you look for SE polar? I don't really. I look for any tool function, which also goes along with the demonstrative NI. You'll see INTPs when you ask them about themselves, they are endlessly potentiating. When you present them potentials, they collapse them down with their NI. So you can kind of spot that pretty easy with the INTPs, and that indicates polar SE. INFPs are a little less likely to do that. It's a little harder to spot in them. But I don't look for it directly. I've come up with a couple possible tests that one might try, but the fact that their tests make them sort of bypass SE. SE is the following through on shit that's already been decided without any particular extra oomph or whatever to push you along. He wouldn't know morality. Duh. Oh, I'd know morality. What I wouldn't know would be, to a certain extent, my own authentic limits, the things that I care about, even though I can't win the argument, you know, stuff like that. I mean, I think FI polar is pretty innocuous, but everybody thinks their polar is innocuous because they get it so poorly that they don't really conceive the scope of its significance. Do you think dominant extroverted cognitive function is associated with social extroversion? Not necessarily. I think extroverted thinking is especially not necessarily associated with social extroversion. In fact, I think extroverted thinkers can be quite annoyed by too much socializing and such. I think FE is generally associated with social extroversion, but it really depends on the position of the FE Dom. If the FE Dom is in a supplicatory position, that is, say they're down on their luck or whatever, then they'll behave with a less obviously FE dominant display. They're still using the FE Dom. It's just requiring them to adjust towards the quieter side, I guess, because of their situation. Rome Morgan says, you can have more than one favorite while listening to music. Any great song is my favorite for the duration it plays. I like that theory. I tried the any polar test on ISTP and the practical part worked quite okay. 5 ways of getting a thing from the bottom of the ocean. In many names, no way. Okay, so he was able to do the TE one as well. Okay, interesting. What does TE look like in an INFP versus an ISFP? I don't know. It's a good question. I mean, they're both in the same slot. It's just whether it's paired with S or F. I don't have any really good answer for that at the moment. The man in the jacket says, I'm sorry, Matthew Alistair, you are my absolutely favorite viewer. You wouldn't understand the whole foundation for your understanding on your MBTI-like system is based off subjective accounts of how different people perceive themselves in the world. I wouldn't know. So presumably I don't know that the whole foundation for my understanding on your MBTI-like system, I mean, it's more socionics-like than MBTI-like, frankly, but okay. It's based off subjective accounts. So if my system is based off subjective accounts of how different people perceive themselves in the world, does that mean it's impossible for my system to successfully model how people perceive themselves in the world? If it is based on subjective accounts, let's just say it is. Because there's plenty of pretty concrete objective data that I can cite from, it's like I can give a skills test to somebody, and if they can't do basic skills, they fall into a pool of people who can't do basic skills, they don't have anything sort of wrong with them. Well, that's pretty definitive that those skills pool like that. It's empirical. It's undeniable. So I would also say this, Nick Klopp. If you want to be convincing that I'm wrong in some way, if you want to successfully attack me, you need to actually attack something I did or say, right? You're just trying to attack me as inherently wrong because I'm FI polar about my whole foundations and not understanding that it's based on subjectivity or something. You're not talking about me or anything I said at all. You're just making shit up and then just saying it. So if you want to actually use your brain, like, okay, I'm Nick Klopp. Today I'm going to use my brain. I'm going to go look at something Eric said, and I'm going to quote him and take exception with it and say, you said this and this is wrong. And here's why. Thank you, judgmental JJ. You're a wonderful human being. So, Nick Klopp, that's your mission. I'm assigning you a mission. We're going to teach you something today. That's not an argument you made there. What you just did was just some diarrhea came out of your mouth again. So if you would like to make an argument, I'd be happy to engage you argumentationally. If you really want to critique my shit, go ahead. Dig yourself in. But you actually got to critique my shit. You can't just make personal attacks because then you just look like an idiot. Okay. How do you experience FI, someone with FI polar? It's frustrating. I hate it when I'm being forced into my feelings, as I sometimes am by Kimberly's intransigence, for example, or, a another kind of feelings that happens is if I am sad or something, like when we lost a pet or something. Those kind of emotions, I don't like having them. They make me sleepy. If Kimberly's making me mad, I get mad. It's like it's frustrating because she won't put the FI aside. She's demonstrative FI, but she's quite in the mix of her own FI anyway because of her own whatever. When she won't put the Fs away and actually just talk to me, it's frustrating because I know that I can solve all of our problems with communication, as I've always done in my life. I am, before all else, an extroverted intuitor. I am communicatively as active as I could possibly be. And I rely on that communication and logical communication and detached evaluation of things to resolve problems with the people in my life. So, it's necessary for her to be cooperative. And when she's not cooperative in communications, that is to say, when she's not working with me towards agreement, towards mutual win-win situations or whatever, it gets infuriating, especially when she's using her FE like a stick. And in those instances, I get very tired because my FI polar is such that it transmutes into introverted sensing. And if you were to add more subjective experiences over 100 videos, then we would fit a statistic truth. It might make you think. It's a very good system. Multiple tests are set up for several people. All right. Well, I'm not actually claiming that my system's been validated at all, nor am I claiming that it is entirely valid or that it's entirely right. All I say about it is that it's continuing to be in progress. I've parsed away most of the obviously wrong things, and I've done a lot of work on it. I've a lot of people, talked to a lot of people, taken ideas from a lot of different places, tested them all out logically. And there's an additional piece of good news. Because I am a very lucky ENTP, I am a professional debate coach, which means I'm very, very familiar with putting together successful cases, that's to say, to successfully argue that this is the way it ought to be interpreted. And it's why the only kind of pushback I really get is from idiots like Nick Klopp, He's not even pushing back against me. He's just hating the fact that he just hates me, that's all. There's no ideation there at all. See, this is your lead SE coming through. You're not saying anything, Nick. You're just making shit up. Well, how would that be my lead SE coming through? Explain that. What am I doing or following through on? You don't understand the concepts that I'm saying because you're 8 slot any. Oh, okay, Nick. All right. Well, listen. I understand that the surgery has made you a little grumpy. I would also be grumpy if I had to get an entire surfboard surgically removed from my ass. And I'm sure it did hurt a lot, Nick, but that's why you shouldn't. When someone dares you to sit on top of the surfboard and your anus is as loose as Nick Klopp's, you don't take that dare because the whole thing slips up in there and then you got to go to the hospital. So I get it. You're grumpy. But don't take out your grumpiness on me. I'm not the one with a poop-covered surfboard. You are. So just lick it off and go home. Your system is based on argumentation, though. Isn't it possible the semantics of language don't allow for complete understanding of functions? Of course. I'm not claiming to have a complete understanding of functions, John Winters. I'm claiming to have an actual simulatable understanding of functions. Something that the definitions are operationalized into some sort of machine code style interactivity between functions, vectors, fields, objects, classes of objects, things like that, right? If you can't even begin to simulate it, then you're just talking a metaphor. Now, I'm not trying to solve all of human experience. I'm not trying to say this explains everything in human experience. I'm trying to say this attentional configuration explains personality. And it does. And here's why it does. And here's a lot of independent factors that mutually confirm each other in ways that are pretty definitive. And so that's how it is, every system is based on argumentation. This is what TE users often don't get. Doesn't matter what the fuck system you're talking about. Every system, if it's communicable, if it's something that they teach, it's based on logic, first and foremost. All true science started first as someone's intuitive idea, and then there came to be the empirics to establish that was, in fact, the correct thing. That's the direction in which it works. TE people, I know you're not John Winters. I'm just saying, it's what you're saying there is you were doing a very TI approach towards what is more clumsily done with TE, which is to say semantics. It's all just semantics. I mean, yeah. I mean, that dude, whatever his name was, John Glopp or whatever his name, that guy's, he not only has no actual argument, he's not even trying to hold me to impossible standards. He's just stomping his feet. Eric, what is your definition of smart? Because you keep saying types of smart without any definition and use intuitives as a standard for this. So smartness, at least when comparing sensors. Well, I mean, I would say that in the conventional sense of the word smart means interested in, I guess I mean TI smart, interested in and successful at the determining of communicable statuses, I guess. Like, I mean, obviously I don't think of TE people as being smart, because I think of smartness as having to do with communicative quickness. But that's just my definition of it. It's not like a real definition. It's not, and I'm not trying to say we ought all use that definition. Nick mistakes his lips for his penis, so he's always pissing out of his mouth. How do IXTJs perform in a TI polar test? They'll do okay. They'll do fine. INTJs will do just fine. ISTJs they'll battle with it a little bit, but they'll do fine. The only people who have trouble with the TI tests are TI polar, or like you'll get some weak ISFPs, maybe 8th slot, but those, it's like when you test it directly, it seems like 8th slot doesn't reveal much to you. It doesn't necessarily mean actually a quote unquote weak function or something. It just means it's hard for a third party to pull out 8th slot from people. General relativity is wrong because Einstein, he really liked ice cream. And, if you like shit, you got feelings, and you don't even know why you like the ice cream, then you couldn't possibly be right about the whole universe. You're not even right about ice cream. Is grammar arbitrary in its construction? No. Grammar is the same thing as the architecture of validity. That is to say that grammar is comprised. Okay, it depends what you mean by grammar. In terms of like which order the direct object goes after, before, and varies between languages, yeah, that's arbitrary. But the relationship between statement connectives is not. So and, or, not, if then, if and only if. Those are connectives that inherently tell you about the truth value of what comes around it. So if I like apples and I like cheese, then both the first part and the second part has to be true for the whole thing to be true. But if I like apples or I like cheese, then I only have to like one of them for it to be true. So in that regard, the statement connectives indicate where the logic comes from. The other thing about grammar is it's not arbitrary in its construction because it's representative of the reality of the metaphysical environment, which is that, like, the only way that human beings understand human beings is either experientially as an observer, or somebody else viewing them in the role of an experiential observer, which is to say they're a subject, or a subject or an observer is doing some sort of action towards an object. There's a limited amount of of framing, I guess, that can be done there in that regard. Okay, just a circle. Ha, no problem, Matthew. For future reference, check out Don Martin Sound Effects Dictionary. What does force law TE look like in comparison to force law TI? Force law TI, you're looking at ENFJ, ESFJ. ESFJ typically isn't very concerned with their TI and don't expect to be seen as smart and are fine getting like help from people. ENFJ is much more concerned about being perceived as both competent and warm, so they tend to position themselves as having better TI than they do, but then they also mistake TE for TI a lot when they're talking. Well, I would hard smash this guy in a debate, LMAO. He simply dribbles on with all his logical fallacies, and you all are robot. So why don't you tell us about him? Because here's the thing, Nick Klopp. I really resent it when people won't teach me their wisdom. I try to learn from everybody. So if, in fact, I'm guilty of some fallacies, then tell me what they are so I can start learning. I'm eager. Let's see. Propositions equal other propositions, though, i.e. wood is in paper, wood is in trees, we name them, blah, 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 and attempt to separate them, but aren't they the same? Well, what's that in reference to? I'm not sure. My astrology sign, by the way, is a Taurus. Do you think the life you've had was destined to play out the way it has? What's your life's purpose? That's a good question. I've begun believing, more or less, I don't believe is the right word, but I've begun practicing a destiny frame after I quit drinking, where I really started getting into a certain amount of magical thinking. Prior to that, I was not really engaged in magical thinking. If you don't engage in magical thinking, you can't really take advantage of any magic. So I'd have to say that prior to that, I was more or less detached from the magic. And Nick Klopp, not even a teeniest fraction of one of these people can fit on something that tiny, let alone all of these people right in your dick. Unless they're all ants, there's no way any more than one of anything could get on that. It's like that. Okay? You need to remember that. You are fun to beat up a little bit, but that's the only worth you have as far as I can tell. Whipping boy. If that's what you get off on, go for it. Come right here and get whipped. You know, nothing wrong with being submissive. You enjoy that shit, go for it. Is it safe to say it is outside of our ability to grasp given out perceptual set? Oh, we skipped my question where they asked whether true objectivity can actually be discovered by humans. Well, what do you mean by true objectivity? I mean, objectivity is best understood as a frame of deliberation. It's either disinterested or interested. We can additionally understand objectivity meaningfully to refer to data. Data is objective when it's referenceable by all parties. Beyond that, there's not really any meaningful definition of the word. You could just say objective is of the object, but you know, I'd say it's probably good to have the words distinguishing them, though, because while they're the same family of stuff, it would be different if you wrote on a tree or on a paper. I get what you mean, though. Well, I mean, it depends what the purpose of the question is. Is a paper and a tree the same thing? No. Are paper does a tree and a paper both comprise something originating in wood? Yeah. But that doesn't mean the same thing. In no meaningful sense. Yeah, Von Chase, I would guess that would be F5 polar. Bruce Wayne says, I'm his favorite streamer. Thanks, you're my favorite viewer. What a coincidence. Funny enough, magicians use logic to accomplish their tricks. Well, I mean, there's this obsession people have with the word objectivity that I don't understand. It's like, it's as though it's this holy land, this normative good of scienciness or something, but nobody meaningfully defines the word before they use it. So magical thinking, I don't think, always implies creativity, especially if your magical thoughts take a repetitive pattern in the psyche that isn't very useful. Magical thinking can be boring. Right. Well, it did get boring for me. Magical thinking got boring because it has a very weak link to reality. You can, and it's also dangerous if you start trying to make it have it. If you're trying to be impactful with magical thinking, because magic will work, and then you got to deal with some problems. I had been the Calamity Bear, this magical bear that I had. I found it in the house here, and it immediately started causing problems. I broke the screen on my laptop. It caused so much problems. I don't even remember all the damage that happened as soon as I had it. And it even caused the death of my kitten. Right. Because I was worried about this magical talisman. Right. So I pointed it over that way, so it faced that way away from me, so nothing bad would happen to me. And exactly where I was pointing, that next morning, my kitten was killed by a dog in that spot. I pointed to the neighbor's backyard. And that was the second or third bad thing that had happened with Ben the Calamity Bear. I was trying to make Ben into a talisman of magic, but it backfired on me, and it just broke my shit. So that's the problem. I have to respect the Slavs. The Slavs don't like it when you fuck with their shit. Black magic. Would I be sad if I were raped? I don't know if it'd be sad. I'd be surprised. I'd be probably eager to clean up my butthole. What I mean by objective in this context is proving something exists outside of our subjective scope. Okay, well, Mad Biscuit, it's not possible to prove that something is unobserved, which is what you're trying to say, because everything is predicated on observation. There is no unobserved thing. There is no unobserved object. There is no unobserved reference point that we can communicate about. What's hidden agenda TI, and also how does it manifest differently in both ISFJ and INFJ? INFJ, it's more important they be perceived as TI sound, whereas ISFJ is a lurker a bit with their TI. They'll surprise you periodically with it. They don't necessarily want to be perceived as particularly TI effective or anything. Objectivity equals existentialism. Existentialism equals objectivity. The point about the wood and paper is clearly they are separate and distinct, but they blend together as two functions. Okay, but I mean, functions do blend together. That's true. But paper and trees are not the same thing. They are distinct. They don't blend together. A paper is made from a tree. Paper supervenes upon trees. That is to say, paper cannot exist until after trees do. There's an ordinal distinction. It's not just a definitional thing, right? There's a process that has to be undertaken to make a piece of paper. So the muddling of definitions gets you nowhere. Well, look, Matthew, yes, I wanted it. But afterwards, I retroactively decided I didn't want it after all. Existentialism is simply anything outside of humans. There's no such thing as stuff outside of humans. There's no experience except for that it is part of an agent. So remember that. Now, that doesn't mean that stuff isn't external. There is stuff that's external to people. And some of the things external to people are physical objects, and some of them are metaphysical objects. And we do operate on the external world differently than in some other areas, but that doesn't mean that existentialism equals physical objects. I don't know where you get that notion from. How do you think a relationship between an ENTP and an INTJ plays out? We get along fine. ENTPs like the fact that they've got even worse FE than we do, and we don't have to worry about our FE, and they don't seem to get upset about shit. And INTJs, they're very interesting. They talk about interesting things. They're purposeful. I like them. I've worked with them as debaters before. I was like working with them as debaters. They're great. So, that's my experience with them, and that's how I understand it. How do ESTPs experience any? They usually just serve their SE. They generate some ideas of some shit to do, and then they do something, or generate a couple of ideas necessary to resolve something. But the thing is, it's always serving a purpose. It's never just for its own sake. Well, great. You answered the second part, but not the first. What is hidden agenda TI? That's, ultimately, if you're an FE tool user, you can schmooze your way through things, but you'd like to be able to win on merits and on the arguments and be right. Inversely, for me, I know I can be right and win on the arguments, but I would like to be well-liked and thought of highly. So, I'm trying to alter some of my reflexive behaviors and be more generally peacemaking or something. And of course, people still piss me off. Like whatever that idiot was who came in last night and tried to post 17X. Yeah. It's like Nick Klopp's clearly just a troll, so he's not even worth the attention. If objectivity means data that is equal for all parties to check given a universal standard, then why isn't TE objective given that definition? Well, because there's never any other party that's interested in checking anything TE, for one thing. But you're right, the data is objective for TE. There's no doubt about that. TE deals with objective data in the sense that it's dealing with the data in the external world. The thing that makes it subjective is that the frame is the goal. So the data won't be interpreted the same way by two different people, even if they both look at it. It might be depending on how limited the dynamic system is. If I show you a broken doorknob, you might diagnose the problem as this. I might diagnose it as that. We might both be right. Maybe there's actually two problems with it. So, whereas if we put it into words and put it in front of people, there's one right answer, is valid or invalid, or if people are going to disagree, it's because it's not constructed in terms of logical proofs like that, or they're going to disagree with a premise or something. But that's not the same thing as there's no possible way to disagree with the notion that all pigs breathe, Joe breathes, therefore Joe is a pig, is invalid. And it's invalid because of the structure of the reasoning, not because of the falseness or truth of the premises. And so there's not an equivalent thing like that for TE. What's the best solution here? Well, it depends on the goal and the problem solver. Well, look at this data. This thing's broken. Okay, well, that is objectively so that thing is broken, and that's objective data we can note. But what that means we ought to do, or what that, whatever else it means in terms of TE is, it could be a lucky thing. I'm so lucky this thing's broken because we were trying to get through here anyway. That's what makes it subjective, is that while the data can be referenced by everybody, it means different things to everybody, and there's no right meaning to it. Whereas that's not true with communicative stuff. No, TE does not create a standard. The only way that TE would create a standard is if it was TE's job to create a standard. Then it would create one, but it would be the process of creating one that was a TE, not the standard. If it's a standard that applies to multiple things, then it's not TE. So that doesn't mean you can't standardize protocols, though. So, for example, writing lesson plans is TE, writing lesson plans for a class, where I'm saying, first do this, then do that, then do the next thing, then do the next thing. That's ordinal. It's rendering a dynamic process into a mechanical one through ordinality. And is it objective? Well, the words are, sure, because the words are TI. They're understood through TI. And so they objectively mean what they objectively mean. Is it objective that that's the best way to teach the class? No. Is it objective that those are good lesson plans? No. Is it objective that they're bad lesson plans? No. Is it objective that the teacher ought to do those lesson plans other than something else? No. So that's what I mean by TE is subjective. Order of operations is very much a TE thing. Isn't logic a framework that everyone chooses to abide by that is only upheld as a standard because that's how it's been constructed? No, it's not. It's absolutely not created. It's an inherent quality of language. So it has to do with the statement connectives and the fact that we have conditionality. It's an inherent quality of a conditional realm. To have free will, we need to have conditionality, because having conditionality means it's not necessarily the case that there's only one thing that we could possibly do. We can at least imagine other possible things we could do and choose between them, so to speak. Well, he should make videos mocking MBTI if he wants to. He shouldn't make videos mocking cognitive functions because he'll have to pay attention through one of them to do so. No, it's inherent to the thing. It's like, for example, Mad Biscuit. I can't be here live streaming right now in real time and also eating a sandwich at the same time, in the same time, place, and context. So we know that that's unavoidably true, that there are limits to one's agency, that one's agency is not infinite. I can't, by snapping my fingers at the infinity gauntlet, all of a sudden be on the other side of the earth. And to the extent that things facilitate my agency and make it more and more powerful, is because of technology and not because of me. So the thing to remember there is logic is a necessary precondition of being able to communicate effectively. If I tell you I have Coke and root beer, which would you like? And you say root beer. And I come back and I give you a Coke. And you say, but I said I wanted a root beer. And I say, well, we only have Coke and root beer. And you go, well, can I have a root beer? And you go, sorry, we only have Coke and root beer. We'd have problems, right? Because you're saying we have Coke and root beer. You're not saying we have Coke and we do not have root beer. There's a difference between the two things. So if you want to accept that words mean anything, then you have to begin with the word and or. Those words mean things, for sure. If you want, I'm going to trade you this pack of cigarettes for $5 and that cigar. Then you have to give me two things. That's why logic isn't arbitrary at all. It's because words, if and didn't mean and, we'd need something else to mean it. In order to render things conditionally, we have to be able to represent them as binary symbols. And in fact, all of our modeling of the world and all of our modeling of the universe and everything is reliant on that. So if, in fact, logic were arbitrary and subjective, then this wouldn't work. You wouldn't be able to talk to me right here, because this is all conditional logic. It's all TI. The fact that we're able to render things not only into abstract symbols in our own heads, but we've successfully created a metaphysical ecosystem for humanity called the internet. That's pretty fucking badass. And that's all TI. The only thing that's TE about it is the doing it. You know, like the TI figures out the logic, and then TE figures out how to node shit out. So it's like, okay, we're gonna have these modules. So everything's modulated basically. Like instead of coding out the whole thing, we'll use chunks of apps from all the different places, and it'd be like a bank app. Oh, that whole shit's TE. But the actual ideational process is all TI, and it always will be, because it's anytime you're dealing with representationals that just say things that have definitional limits rather than physical limits, then you're dealing in conditionality. How do those with high SI experience tangible reality? How different is ISJ reality from ESP reality? John Winters, language is not a human construct. Okay? Language is an expression of human being. In other words, you can't be human without both having a representational system and a real system that you exist in. You can't be human without having both a body and external bodies, without having both a mind and external minds. That's to say, a communicative platform of some sort, like talking or writing. There is no human expression that doesn't convey communication to some extent, in some ways. So it's impossible to imagine human beings without language. It's not a construct for sure. No, we don't assume the propositions are correct. That's the thing. You forget why conditionality can attain absolute certainty. Because the propositions are, if all these assumptions are true, then the conclusion must be true. That statement is absolutely true for valid statements. Indisputably so. Non-arbitrarily so. Definitionally so. It's implicit to the meaning of the words. So you have to understand what conditionality is first. It's not whatever you feel like it is, right? There's concrete things that language does and doesn't do. There are locutionary and non-locutionary elements to communication as well, and those need to be understood too. So absolutely, the universality of TI logic is not in any dispute. There's literally nobody can sanely dispute it. We're talking about validity here, it's been cut and dry, agreed upon. Everybody understands it for thousands of years. The internet was successfully built on the concept, so it's been proved. No problem. Conditionality is absolute deductively in its conditional form. There's not any disputing that. No, I mean conditionality as in, look, if I say all men are mortal, Socrates is a man, therefore Socrates is mortal. What I'm really saying is, if all men are mortal, and if Socrates is a man, then Socrates is immortal. In other words, what I'm really saying is, if all objects in set A have attribute B, and if object C is in set A, then object C has attribute B. It's a logical relationship that is detached from the meaning of the words. Do you understand? Deductive reasoning, yeah. Conditional logic. That's what I've been saying. You could disrupt what? I mean, conditional logic is a certain thing. You can't disrupt it. You can point out that it's not universal. It doesn't solve all problems. It's not perfect for everything. But it's a closed set. There's nothing to disrupt. There's a finite set of rules of inference, rules of replacement. When you finish basic conditional logic, you go on to quantification theory. It's a separate unit, a closed set. So there's nothing to disrupt, dude. It's like disrupting spelling. Flawed how? How can it be flawed when you don't even know what it's being used for? How can it be inherently flawed? Isn't it a form of argumentation? So when is that argument flawed? When it's used to argue what? That's not a meaningful statement to say a priori is flawed. A priori is an argument you can make. It's only flawed if you use it in a flawed way. It doesn't exist independently of its usage. Thank you, Bruce Wayne. People find it frustrating, but I just demand of them to actually know what the fuck they're talking about. And almost nobody does. So Isn't the non-arbitrariness of logic fundamentally based on physical limitations, constraints, like not being in two places at the same time or having a round square? That's called the law of non-contradiction, and that refers to physical objects. Metaphysical objects have the definitional equivalent to it. And functionally, what it boils down to in application is that statements and claims have rhetorical slope. Some of them are more easy to defend than others. People think they're making claims that are worth making, but they haven't thought ahead of time of why they're making that claim and under what framework. And so that's what causes them to fail. No, John Winters is a lot smarter than 17X. John Winters is being frustrated because he's trying to ESTP me. You're in the wrong form for that. I'm going to have too much of an advantage over you here. And this, not just because I'm the one live streaming, you're chatting, but because any is going to have too much of an advantage in this context. What are you, John Winters? Just a guess. I don't know. John Winters claims to be an INTJ. Well, he's making decent TI arguments, even though he's making the arguments on behalf of TE. This is so FE. I could disrupt it, but it seems you don't want to have that conversation. That's super FE, John Winters. You got to be kidding me. You don't. There's zero chance that you mean that literally, because if you were an INTJ, you just do it, or you wouldn't say anything. You wouldn't bluff it. John Winters, I don't give a fuck what you are. You're whatever I want you to be. You're an encyclopedia. Okay? There. So TI can play with two disparate assumptions and pull out the correct reality of those two assumptions. So basically, the only way for these things to exist is if this also exists or if it doesn't exist. Remember, we're talking about words. Words are representations, symbolic representations of things, right? They have definitional meaning, definitional constraint, rather than physical constraint. That doesn't make them less real. It does make them metaphysical. Oh, 17X from the other day claims to be INTJ. Awfully stupid INTJ. How can I remember more with my weak SI? You can't. You're doomed. Remember nothing. Live a life of amnesia. Is it 7th slot? You really can't do anything about it. If it's 8th slot, you don't worry about it. If it's 6th slot, you'll improve gradually over time. John Winters is a fluffy cloud made of cotton candy. Maybe the blue cotton candy, giving a certain masculine feel to the whole thing. So other than if-then criteria, what else would TEI use for deductive reasoning? TEI just parses across consistency. So you'll hear me correct myself a lot of times if I misstate something. If I say, I was at this restaurant on Wednesday. Actually, I think it was Tuesday. Because just being a TI tool user, I'm always checking for consistency. Checking my own claims for consistency with my SI. Checking my interpretation for consistency with the facts rather than my feelings. Checking my FE with consistency with data points and or my own objective self-criticism. Checking all kinds of shit, you know. It's just a consistency check. It's a tool function. Tauruses are pretty materialistic. I'm a Taurus. I don't think I'm very materialistic. So I'm doomed to not get anything done for the rest of it. Correct, Geo Nigi Yugi. Well, I mean, you're getting a lot done right now. You're here. You're chatting. It's really the best that life has to offer. How to think faster. How to train SE on a metaphysical plane by SE on a 7th slot. I don't know how to do that. I don't know. I don't think you can train your polar. I don't know. I follow materialism? What the hell does that mean? I don't follow shit. I'm not a big person in favor of beliefs. I understand that these sort of things are all arguments and they get played out as such and not to be treated as such. Define rationality. The capacity to provide rationales. I'm SC blind and I need motivation to do shit. Being an ESP doesn't sound like a bad idea. Yeah, but if you were an ESTP, then you are a materialist. Like you do not have a belief system then? Well, I have a number of different belief systems regarding different situations, contexts. I have overarching meta framework that incorporates my different belief systems and reconciles contradictions and or becomes at home with them accordingly, like anybody else. I have a better question. Rationale versus logic. Well, a rationale may be logically sound or not, depending on how it's presented. A justification as well might be logically valid, but still not sound. And so that's why claims have rhetorical slope, as I mentioned earlier. Agnostic atheist care to enlighten us. I am a deist of sorts, but I don't typically argue in favor of the deist position. I could argue any of those positions. I have magical thinking in my repertoire of belief systems. I utilize it appropriately. So you might say I'm an atheist who prays to God Almighty, my Lord and Savior. What do I mean by rhetorical slope? Rhetorical slope refers to how easy or difficult it is to substantiate I'll get to your question in a second, John Williams. How easy or difficult it is to substantiate a claim? So, for example, how is deism magical? Seems completely logical. Well, even if you were to conclude that the attachment to deism as a belief is somehow logical, you could not ever possibly conclude that the interaction with God is logical. So that's why I would say it entails nothing but magical thinking, even if it in and of itself is a logically defensible position to hold. And it's certainly not a foregone conclusion. I could win the argument either way against you, but, you know, are you fond of Catholic priests? No, I don't go to any church. I'm not a churchgoer. Can you please? I was raised by atheists. My parents were atheists, and they're very anti-Christian and stuff, you know. Can you please explain the process NT types learn TE versus TI? I mean, NT types don't learn TE versus TI. I don't know how it is that I came to be at ENTP, if you're asking that. Like, how is it that I came to be TI instead of FI or something? I have no idea. I can hear you are a little bit late. How does TI come up with arguments that quickly? Mostly NE. Well, remember, I've been doing this a long time. Do your cognitive functions become stronger as you age, or do you think it's up developing at a certain age? No, they do become stronger, but only some of them do. And you can become more actualized or less actualized. Not everybody evolves. Some people devolve. I'm evolving. I pray to God every night pretty much. Mostly prayers of gratitude. I also pray to the slabs. There's God, Jesus, the Holy Ghost, and the slabs. The slabs are basically God's slabs, for lack of a better word. He moves them in slots and stuff, you know. You have a much more fearful relationship with the slabs. The slabs are mighty and wrathful beyond all measure. How does a definition become substantiated? There's no fully substantiated definition. Both parties provide definitions within the frame of the resolution at hand. So if you're arguing about, for example, foreign policy, you're really arguing about a term of art called foreign policy. If I were to say we were arguing instead about not foreign policy from the U.S. perspective, but the policy of foreign countries, because after all, foreign means foreign and policy means policy. So we must be talking about like England's policy, for example. Well, I would be wrong in my definition there. So, which definition should win the day? Well, in that instance, because it's clearly a term of art where it is most frequently known as a term of art and is being used here in this resolution, that's the definition that should win the day. Of course, both debaters would have to argue in favor of their definition. And it is, in fact, the case that that sometimes somebody is a better arguer can win a position they ought not win. My test is always which side will I win arguing against myself, and that tells me pretty definitively which is the best position. So I'm entirely detached, right? I don't give a fuck. So you're talking the Christian God right here. Well, I mean, more or less, yeah. Christian God, I don't read the Bible or anything, but there's God, Jesus, Holy Ghost, and the slabs. Actually, yeah, I second that. What's your opinion on the whole developing functions as you grow up thing? One way I distinguish myself, INFP, and my sister when we were young. I think that your third function gets better if you're optimizing, if you're in an optimizing environment. If your life's not, some people, like I said, devolve. If you get into the wrong kind of circles or cycles and shit can go downhill instead of uphill, then you're not going to go like this. But if you do evolve, then I think your third slot gets better. I think your fourth slot gets better with a dual. I'm not sure it gets better on its own. Your sixth slot gets better too. Mostly your 3-6 where you can see conscious growth. Other functions may get better. Like I think my NI's gotten a lot better, but it's more just age and wisdom and not so much conscious. I have less of a conscious, willful understanding, but improving. Oh, NTPs tend to ask questions like why, when, where, how, etc. NTJs tend to quote and give you already working systems. Yeah, well, NTPs want to argue with you. NTJs don't. They will argue with you, but that's not the purpose of the thing for them. Subtypes and dimensionality of function aspect strength. Subtypes are bullshit. Dimensionality of functions, I'm not sure what that refers to. Look, subtypes are bullshit because there's no justification for them. There's no mechanical justification for them. They're always going to be arbitrary. They're going to be based on displays. I've thought it through a million times. There's no way to justify it. Believe me, they're tempting, but don't go there. It's a waste of time. Dimensionality is probably just a display thing. It's certainly not the case that where the slot is correlates with how many dimensions you can use it in. So it's just simply plain wrong about that. And it's because they're not distinguishing between the kinds of functions. When we change the unconscious patterns of thinking, I think they invariably do change as we learn new things, but it's not really a willful change. You're not saying I am changing these. It evolves in response to PewDiePie. John, your body is the temple of the God we need. Don't need churches, and especially not any mosques. Well, I mean, I don't need a church and don't need a mosque. What type is Ben Shapiro? I don't know. He's either an ENTP or an ENTJ. But I'd have to talk to the guy rather than just watch him debate. He's a good debater. He probably debated in high school. Why are words used to pull out logical relationships? Is because they're static, right? Words are static, which allows them to go both directions in time. That's the key distinction of conditional time from causal time. So in the physical world, we have causal time. When I do that, it's done. I can't go back and undo it. I may be able to repair the damage I've done or something like that, but I can't go actually back and undo something. It was never done conditionally, it was done actually. Whereas in conditional world, we can imagine doing something, not do it, but then go and imagine doing something else. So, so we need words the form of them to be absolutely static, and the meaning to be relatively static, which we have. That's why we treat it as an objective system. Can polar NI be catastrophizing situations or just complete cluelessness? I think it's more likely to not recognize when something's catastrophic, actually. Like, there's sometimes when you know, it's really a big fucking disaster, and you should neither FE it nor TE it. You should just deal with the scope of it, you know? Why do I find it hard to type my own self? I feel like I can pin down the types of my close friends, but I have a hard time finding my own type. Did you look in this under this little flap here? They usually print it on the back. Mine says ENTP back here. 724275, I believe, is my model meg number. I am on a training speed, and congratulations, AS. I am not on a train in Sweden. I am in the garage in Laverne. Wow, why do you think people don't look at metaphysical ideas, concepts as technologies? What do you mean? I don't understand that question. I think I'm an INTA. Can you give me any tips on how to check or confirm that? Meat thermometer. Jab it about 3 inches deep into your chest. Then, later at the hospital, ask the doctor what type you are. Okay, Bruce Wayne, do you see how ineffective and annoying people are? They make no sense. Ceralius. Well, it's a great beginning. And INTJ, I know, describes his inferior functions like a little child that's trying to learn to ride the bike but can't learn, so the child just keeps pushing the bike so it can keep it going. What's his inferior? That's SE, huh? I'm not religious myself. I'm agnostic. I can't take any position, atheist, theist. Well, this is the problem, Joel Nathan Henry. Agnostic is not, as you say there, a position. And people think it is. Like, are you atheist, deist, or agnostic? To say I hold the position that I don't know and it's unknowable, that's fine. But that's not relevant here. That's just saying, like, two people are going to debate about this topic, and you go, hey, just want to tell you, everybody, I don't know anything about this. I don't have any opinions about it, and I'm not going to say anything more about it. Okay, well, that's fine. You're certainly entitled to that, but it's not a position. And the thing is, in any given instance, it's only worthwhile having a position one way or the other. I'll argue either side. I can argue the atheist side. I can argue the deist side. There's no point in arguing it because, unlike just about any other argument we conceive of, it is a strange argument about existentiality. What else do we argue about the existence of? Can you think of anything? We always argue about an ought of some sort. What ought we do? What ought we believe? I know you said that, Joel Nathan Henry. You did say that, and I'm sorry I portrayed it as me. I made the point I wanted to make off of something that didn't actually deserve that point to be made on it. So my bad there, Joel Nathan Henry. You caught me, and I stand corrected. My mother is an ESFJ and forced me to learn how to ride a bike. I fell a lot before I could learn. I still can't swim. Huh. Can you synchronize swim? Have you tried that? Sometimes that helps. When you're typing people in an unofficial capacity when you're on the channel, how do you type them? I don't really type people in an unofficial capacity. I might notice somebody does something if they do something particularly meowy or whatever. But I don't generally type people. I don't go around the world typing people all the time. I don't really care what type of people are, you know. It's I'll notice it if I have some sort of problem. Then I'll sort of be like, okay, well they must not be responding to this. Let me think about this for a second. But other than that, I don't typically think about it. I'm pretty self-absorbed, I spend a lot of time thinking about what I'm going to say in my next video, or making music, or arguing with Kimberly and trying to get her to cooperate with me a bit more. I'd say join a synchronized swimming team, Bruce Wayne. It'll give you the structure you need to learn how to swim. Strap time type you don't know what you're talking about. Dangerous. I don't think it's dangerous. I mean, look, I might have even used that word on occasion before myself. I don't really think it's dangerous to mistype somebody. I just think it's, it can fuck with them though, right? It can fuck with them for sure. You need to spend time talking with somebody. When I'm talking to somebody and typing them, they're telling me the whole time if they're not liking what I'm typing them as. And I'm reading, making clear for myself whether that's indicative of the fact that I'm wrong in some way, or that they're wrong about their type description. But I've only had one unsatisfied client, and that person I didn't actually type. They were unsatisfied because I fucked up the scheduling thing and I had to give them a refund. But anyway, the thing is, it's dangerous to put too much faith into somebody who types you half-assedly, for sure. The thing is, I'll tell you at the end of the typing session how sure I am, too. I'm not just going to say, this is your type, and that's it. I'll say, this is your type, and I'm 100% sure. Or, this is your type, but there's a little bit of wiggle room. And I'm sorry that there's some wiggle room. I wish there weren't, but in this instance, I'm not quite sure about this one thing. It could be this or this. Usually it's not like that. Usually I can figure it out by the end. Okay, I agree that it's synonymous with oneself, and if you play with that, then you're playing with the person's sense of being this deleterious, provided they're putting that much faith into your perspective. So I think people should put that much faith into my perspective, but I put that much into a typing. I make sure I get the person right. Basically, it says 75 minutes, but it goes as long as it takes for me to get it right and to feel like both parties are fully satisfied, Regardless, when I'm talking about type as well, I'm talking about the processes of attention. And I'm saying, look, this is the process of attention that appears to be in your polar, for example. Like I typed in ENTJ last night. He emailed me, and he's like, I'm interested. And I'm like, well, I could do it right now if you want. And he's like, yes, right now. And so it was like, he emailed me, and I was typing him, and then like 15 minutes after he emailed me, PayPal me, and I was typing him. He was easy because he's an ENTJ, and ENTJs are easy to type. They're super easy to type because they blow chunks all over the SI polar test. They're mad at the even concept of there ever being an SI polar test. It's like you're asking for details. They're like, I don't know. I hate it when my wife says that kind of shit to me. I hate that stuff. So obviously ENTJ. But they're invariably very satisfied with the experience. They feel it was well worth it and stuff. And the thing is, I don't always tell people what they want to hear by any stretch of the imagination. I never tell people what they want to hear because it's what they want to hear. That's for sure. And but I will. I don't have that much faith in my own perfection if they're telling me this isn't vibing with my experience, what you're saying about this type, Eric, then that I start taking seriously, and go, okay, well, maybe I'm wrong here. Let me see what I've got wrong. Sometimes I'm still right, and, what sounds pathetic? Earlier, I asked if logic is fundamentally based on physical constraints like not having a round square. You said that's the law of contradiction refers to physical objects. Yeah. But remember that the law of non-contradiction is the metaphysical representation of a quality of physical objects. So, while it's true that the law of non-contradiction only refers to physical objects, because two metaphysical objects can be in the same time, space, and context, and in different places. We can both have a copy of the same MP3, for example, and it'd be identical in every way. There's not a unique object, Eric, you should go and buy a wax cartridge. I have done that before. It's not my preferred method of smoking. This bong rips are better. You know, this is a particularly good weed too. This stuff's called. I went to a new weed store today. I'm glad I went there. That's good. It's called Apple something. No, this is the Willie Nelson one. Sorry, that's not the one I was looking for. This is the better one. Apple Haze. Smells like apples. It totally smells like apples. Hey, hi Eric. Did you hear about Curtis being typed as ESE by Jack? Do you think he's an ESFJ as well? Possibly. It's not out of the question. Eric, why don't you think metaphysical objects are considered important technologies? I don't know that they're not, really. You mean like videos and stuff? What? I'm thrown by your term technologies there. Because, like, this video, when I'm done with this stream and it becomes a video, it'll be a metaphysical object. But I wouldn't call it an important technology. Do you believe that there's a correlation between type and self-awareness or self-delusion? Yeah, for sure. I think that ESFPs are likely to be pretty self-deluded, but there's some benefit in being self-deluded. It's like when I was trying to play music, I was terrible, but I believed myself better than I was, and I needed to believe that, in order to continue. I needed to not have a very clear understanding of what of how far I had to go in order to get going on the path. So it helped me in that regard. We can't be explicit on YouTube, Sir Elias. I showed my nipples one time and everybody freaked out. They're like, now we want to rape you, Eric. Technologies are the ideas and concepts which we base everything on. I agree, those are ideas and concepts. I don't know if I'd call them exactly technologies, but I agree that ideas and concepts are important. I think a lot of people do understand that they are, but there's only a certain amount of audience for this kind of shit. A lot of people just want, they want fart jokes and go water skiing and get drunk at the river and fuck a bunch of chicks and, This was $115. I got $7 grams of the $10 gram stuff. And then I got 7 grams of the 7 grams for 45, whatever that breaks down to. I guess about $6 a gram stuff. The thing is, I've burned my fingers plenty of times with this thing. It's bad, but it's not like I burn them really, really badly. How hard to comprehend how complex ideas actually manifest or can manifest in physical reality. I mean, look, I think one of the best examples, the example I frequently use, because I'm an SI Dom, I'm an SI user, I tend to use the same examples over and over again. Is plate tectonics. Plate tectonics is an explanation for continental drift that is currently accepted as the scientific reality. But for a long time, it was considered bullshit because the scientists all thought the Earth was expanding like a balloon, and that was making the continents drift apart from each other. But this guy, I forget his name. I made a video about him. And he was right. Everybody thought he was wrong. And he said, well, look, if I'm right, this is what you'll be able to see if you can gather the data. 30 years after he died, they gathered all the data and proved he was right. SRUTI. They will avoid situations exposed to negative consequences of being polar misfunctions. Yeah, I'm an ISFJ. My definition of technology would be anything that provides utility. Okay, well, if you have that kind of a broad definition of technology, then sure. The idea of free will, for example, if human rights offers great utility, if people take these things for granted, don't understand these things like communism, put technology in jeopardy. Yeah, well, there are the habits and practices of a free society that are necessary to maintain the freedom of that society. And foremost among those is protection for freedom of expression, freedom of conscience. And I agree people don't understand them, but people exercise them, and people are accustomed to them, and in some regard, that's more important. But the thing is, people don't understand rights at all. They use the word willy-nilly to mean whatever the fuck they want. Okay, Geo Niggy Yugi, you go have dinner. Listen, I want you to eat a bowl of curry for me, okay? Curried octopus. That's your dinner instructions. Remember, I'm a guru, so you have to do what I say. You have to eat curried octopus tonight. Can you do that for me, please? I'll give you 4 enlightenment points if you do. Communism and socialism is trigger words for a lot of people, especially in America. Well, I mean, I'm not emotionally responding to them. There's just a simple reality of it, which is that it's terribly ill-advised to allow the government to commit concentrated harm for diffuse goods. It never works. It's ends justify the means. It's unjust, and it turns into a buttfuckery of all epic scope. It's 5:30 in the morning. You should really go to sleep. You really should. It's 1:30 here. I should really go to sleep too. What's your type tier rankings? I don't rank the types like that. I think I have a friend and brother who are both ENTP. Do you think young ENTP are likely to take things literally too often, like not understanding nuance in the voice, not noticing sarcasm? I don't think so. Explicitly FE communicative cues like that would probably be picked up by even a young ENTP. They'd probably be extra careful about it, too careful about it. The only way for America to fix a lot of its economic problems is through more capitalism. Well, I agree with you. And as a broad generalization, now, I'm not some sort of anarcho-capitalist or anything. I believe the government has a role, an appropriate role and an inappropriate role, and spends a lot of time doing things that are inappropriate. Why is S best? Why wouldn't A be best and F be worst and S be not even on that list? What are your thoughts on What are your thoughts on yeah? I don't understand why communism is such a bubbly topic. Time and time again, it fails and fails. Because it's not described as what it is. Type this guy. White guy with dreadlocks, very loud, makes rap music, has face tattoos. One of the action types, ES, XP or ENXP. Banks should be allowed to fail when they're no longer providing value. Well, we don't want to have a run on the banks. So I'm not necessarily opposed to FDIC insurance, but I agree with you that beyond protecting the savings and stuff of the people in the bank, that the bank should be allowed to fail. Good night, Michael Blowers. I'm Probably going to wind up the grind here in about 10 minutes myself and go to bed. I feel a poop coming on, so that's always a good reason to end a video. More disassociation of politics and business, not the complete separation, obviously, but less of a connection. I just like to see the federal government have a much smaller role in everything, Our pyramid is upside down. Gaelic Belgate, there's something I've been meaning to tell you. You are my absolute favorite viewer. It's true. It is true. Japanese ranking system. Why does S come first in Japanese ranking system? What does it stand for? Super? What's the worst tier in Japanese ranking system? INFP is F tier, ASF. Bruce Wayne, ENTJs are not a race. No, they're not. I've never been one, and I'm transracial. So if ENTJ were a race, I'd have been them already. But I've been all the races many times. Joel Nathan Henry, you have been an absolute saint among men. I don't know if I mentioned it. The truth is, you are my absolute favorite viewer. You are the bonghead in my lungs. Nobody's offended by you at all. If you really believe you could do it, could you lift 9,000 kilograms? Only if I was lifting with my penis. What race are you today? Icelandic. If race is anything, it has to be based on origin, so like where you came from. Well, I've come from everywhere then, because I've been all the different races. If ESTPs are masters of charming the kitty, I like that expression. Charming the kitty. That's fun. That's fun and soft. I like it. It's not so harsh. Why do we not see them overrepresented in the population? Wouldn't evolution select for them? Well, that assumes that personality is genetic. Not necessarily. It could be based on hormones. You could have hormones in the womb. If it's based on color, which means it's based on in delusion, I'm transracial. Congratulations. Have you come out of the transracial closet? I'm transgender, Mad Biscuit, and there's nothing delusional about it. I go from manly to super manly and back down to manly again. So I don't just stay at one level of manliness, okay? It fluctuates. Quick reminder, ENTP and ESP are Chad tier. I'm not Chad tier. ENTPs are not Chads. ENTPs are nice. We're really nice, frankly. We're soft. We're very childlike, ultimately. Well, you don't want to see that. You don't want to see super manly mode. If you really want to see super manly mode, if you haven't seen it already, then I would recommend a certain video that I like to call Host Eric Screams at People. Yes, Host Eric Screams at People is a classic video. Here, I'm going to try to find the link of it. It's 10 minutes of clips of Host Eric screaming at people. I like that, Let's see. Yells, I think it says, not screams. Let's see. Host Eric yells at people? Part 1. There's only one part to it. It said part 1, but it never was a part 2. I mean, I could make one easily enough. I've got plenty of video of me yelling at people. But, here. This is a fun video. Oh, this is a lot of fun. That is evidence that it is not genetic. Um, My parents are ESTJ and INFJ. Why would they make an ENTP if it was genetic? Although I think my grandfather was possibly an ENTP. Who I never met. My appearance changes with my race, though, murder mystery. That's the thing. You'll notice today I'm more of an orangish, peachish, yellowish, pink kind of color. And some days I'm more of an olivish, yellowish, orangish, grayish, kind of pinkish gray. You know, I've noticed that my scrotum is kind of a pinkish gray color. It's pretty consistent. But the rest of my body, the race changes. Skin tone changes over time. Sometimes the sun will make me into more of an African American or less, for example. Oh shiz, you're an INTJ. Me? Am I an INTJ? I don't think so. It's easier if you think about it like bees. You have the queen INTPs and all the other workers. Oh, are INTPs queen bees? Blue eyes see better in the dark and reflect light better, which is ideal in the forests of Scandinavia and snow there. Oh. Well. So, did they evolve blue eyes because they were in the snow for such a long time? I wonder why people don't evolve eyes anymore. It could be multiple allele determinant. The FE flatness is obvious. Oh, my FE flatness? If you're an INTJ, how would it be obvious to you? You don't even have any FE awareness. Do you know if you have any STDs? I don't think so. I know I don't have any STDs. I must not. If I had one and didn't know about it, it would have shown up by now, I'm sure. I'm not an INTJ though, I think. Okay, well, there you go. Maybe you are right then. Maybe I am an INTJ. Because this time I'm less expressive in my affect than usual. I'm calm. I'm so goddamn calm. I want to talk to you guys about a little ASMR live stream. You hear that? That's the sound of live streaming right in your ear. You like that? Is that sexy? No, Eric, it wasn't sexy. It was horrible. You licked the inside of my ear. I'm really sorry I licked the inside of your ear. Was it better this time? A little bit. Not really. Were you ever like all anxious or whatever? Yeah, I get anxious sometimes. I can think of a couple times when I got anxious. One time was at a poetry slam at Cal State LA before I got up there to read my poem. I was really nervous for some reason that time. I don't know why. I get nervous at the beginning of like a performance, like a music show or something. I get anxious, or not anxious, but I get adrenaline-y when it's a big debate tournament. Like a kid is good, you might win the thing or something, you know? Well, the inferior function feels more like insecure than really bad in my experience. The inferior fourth function is an absolute value that you seek like your mother's heaving bosom. Yeah, it's an absolute value. It's something you seek. You like it. It satisfies you. Your life's better when you have more of it balancing you out. It's the way you ground if you're an extrovert person, or the way you are untethered if you're an introvert. Are ESTPs selected for, or are they willing the selection? Well, I mean, they both. That's a hard question. Does the chicken come first or the egg? I don't know. The inferior function is insecure, and the 8th slot. 4th isn't that bad, to be honest. It's just when you're expected to use it in a more pressure situation, you feel insecure. You don't want to have to use it really at all. And, it's like, it's the thing you put off, right? Therefore, I'm not an INTJ, so I filter my words a lot. As in, what's the best way to put this or whatever. That probably is something that INTJs might consider sometimes, but probably not FE style. That could be any NI trying to figure out the best way to put your point. You need the chicken to lay the egg. That's true. But you need the egg to hatch out the chicken. Free will versus determinism. I'm on side free will. Why are ESTP charming, but then you have their little cousin ISTP are completely flat? Because they don't have any expert intuition. I hope when I'm 50, I can hold logical debates. 50's not that old. My dad's still fucking same guy, same just as sharp as he ever was, 82. I don't care about charming them if they don't like me. I don't care. Yeah, well, they're demonstrating their SI there in that regard. Demonstratively SI. No ISPs do care. They're the most careful with FE. Well, INTPs are more successfully careful with FE. Gotta go. Good night, Eric. Good night, Bruce Wayne. Don't forget to eat plenty of cheese. I always argue with ISPs because they know I'm right, but they don't want to make FE mistakes. That's why they're immune. Man, it's because they don't want to. The reason they're mute is because they can't think of any ideas. And so if you catch them off guard with anything, they need to think about it for a while before they come back and respond to you. No, the first egg was laid by Eve. Eve actually gave birth to a lot of the different kind of creatures before she finally figured out how to give birth to a human. So that's where the chickens come from. Eve's egg. For some reason, INTP wind themselves up about it and get anxious, but ISTPs don't seem to. Well, that's because they're not spending a lot of time ideating about the different possible ways their FE could be interpreted, like INTPs are. They're just recognizing that they aren't very good at that, and they need to be careful with it, and or just kind of dickish about things. That'll solve my problem. Be kind of a dick. Okay. You're welcome to talk about any points with me, whether I agree with them or not. My response to them will always be the same. I will judge them on their merits. Look into Anunnaki history if you want some insight into ancient history and what it could be significant to. Anunnaki? Okay, I'll look up Anunnaki. Is it some NI Mare or what? What time do I gotta meet with that lady tomorrow? Anunnaki. But do chicken eggs predate chicken? That's the question, Joel Nathan Henry. Biscuits or cookies in the UK? Well, biscuits are biscuits in America, so we have them named more properly. Meanwhile, cookies are cookies here. I would save the world, whatever that means, hoping that nobody knows I'm the one who saved it. I'll save the world. What do we need to save it from? Yo, anything significant I missed? We're going to save the world. Gian, Niggy, Yugi, you want to come with us? I'm going to save it from dysentery. Mad Biscuit 23 is going to save it from pollution. Gaelic Belgay is going to save it from meanness. What do you want to save it from, Geo, Niggy, Yugi? You want to save it from locusts? There is a Sumerian tablet which shows the solar system before the tech to do that wasn't available at the time. No, I mean, you can see, I think, 6 planets with naked eye. Remember, there wasn't any light pollution back then either. When people's emotions are disconnected from reality, they get super anxious. But it's not about me using FEI. I'm brutal. And you're like, you're dumb, dummy. Boo. Like that kind of brutal? We can save the cockroaches from people? No, don't save the cockroaches from people. Let's kill all the cockroaches. Who's texting me? Hi, it says. Hi. 865. There. But here's the other component. FE polar can still get the accomplishments from that function. Yeah, you can access it in some different ways. Okay. So the answer to that question is, if a tree falls in the forest and it makes a sound, but there's not anyone there to hear it, does it really make a sound? The answer is, if nobody's there to hear or see the tree fall in the forest, how do we know it fell in the forest? Do I sleep? I'm about to. I'm about done here this evening. I slept this morning like from 6 a.m. till, I don't know, like 11 a.m. or something. The TI truth is a brutal, brutal beast. It'll rip your entrails from your body and gnaw them before bedtime. Make hot chocolate out your spleen. Drink it by the fireside with its children. Laugh and play on top of your rotten corpse. That's the kind of brutality TI truth brings to the equation. The answer, says Sunbeaming, is yes. What was the question, Sunbeaming? I don't know, but we know what the answer is. It was yes. In the collective unctuous. Ooh. I gotta tell you, as a professional typologist, Sunbeaming, your stack's pretty unctuous. You got an unctuous stack. I don't tell all the typology patients that. Oh yeah. Unctuous. That's a word I don't use enough. ESTJs are so right there wrong in a sense they always try to universalize their SI into E. Well, they're trying to make things more unctuous. Mad Biscuit, you can't blame them for that. You know, they go, oh my Lord, unctify my scrambled eggs before I eat them. Don't forget me, future presidents, Andy. When I'm in the Oval Office, will I still be making jokes about things being unctuous? Maybe that's how I'll woo the foreign policy leaders, leaders of foreign countries, to agreeing with my plans. Hey, you want to hear some jokes? I'm witnessing it, Joel Nathan Henry. You're the Holy Spirit too, Joel Nathan Henry. You get to play the role of Holy Spirit today. God's here, pastor's here, president's here, Zandy's here, who's kind of like the chief of staff, and Joel Nathan Henry, the Holy Ghost is here. Plus Jason Rodriguez, the Sumerian superintendent, as they call him in the wrestling ring. Oh, shadow government, Mad Biscuit. Your NI is hanging out your pant leg and dragging in a puddle right now. So just clean it off. Hang it out to dry. Make yourself 100,000 apple pies. The Anunnaki shall come to pass again. Oh, let's see. Anunnakis, huh? The Anunnakis. Let's see. Are a group of deities. Sumerians, Babylonians, they worshipped them. Yada, 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 yada. Modern pseudo-history. In his book, The 12th Planet, Russian-American author Zechariah Sitchin claimed that Anunnakis were a race of extraterrestrial beings. Oh, well, I do believe in UFOs, sort of. Like, I mean, I think there's lots of reasons to believe that. There's more reason to think that UFOs are a better explanation for a lot of UFO phenomenon than any other explanation. Let's put it that way. I gotta go to bed. I'm starving. I'm sleepy. I need to go eat part of a sandwich and drink this little bottle of water and go to bed. All right. So before we go tonight, I just want to remind everybody, number one, that you and you alone are my absolute favorite viewer. And I also want to remind you all, be like sunbeaming. Whatever you do, keep it good and unctuous. It's good advice.